Greg Godbout, you are former executive director and co-founder on 18F and former presidential innovation fellow. Please try to explain what is 18F and Obama's stealth team?
In the U.S., there's been a mission under Obama to fix the way government does essentially IT, but really change the way government works. And one of those services that is doing that is called 18F. It's actually in an agency that's called the General Services Administration, whose primary mission is to provide shared centralized services for the federal government. So we stood up what we call a digital services agency within that agency, and that group is called 18F.
You were co-founder and was a member of the team back in 2013. What made you do that? You had an exciting job and then you took this chance. What was the reason by joining and establishing 18F?
I want to see my government work, right? And right now, all too often we see in the U.S. government that it's not working, right? It's not working well for the people that it should serve. And so it's really that simple. Like, what does it mean to make government work? And it's not as easy as an endeavor as it might seem. It takes changing many things, but someone should have tried. Fortunately for me, there were hundreds of us who were trying, and then that's turning into thousands and hopefully tens of thousands.
Try to explain what is the secret behind 18F and some of the results that you have achieved.
There's a phrase I like, which is, follow the terrain, not the map, okay? And so very often we go forth doing something, we have a map that we're going to follow. And anybody who's experienced any type of delivery or trying to do something, you find out that the map's not always right. And so you immediately have to, what is more important, is follow the terrain. So in GSA, what you have is really a business model. It's an entrepreneur model within government that the agencies and programs within who are tasked to deliver on some mission get appropriated dollars. They can choose or not choose to spend their money on a service at GSA to help them in the delivery of that. And so for 18F's success, and I think its ultimate long-term success, is the fact that it has to operate as a business. It has to compete to survive.
How did you operate? How do 18F operate?
The two things we insisted on was that, and this was in our experiment, to build a flat organization and a new culture. And to do that, we said we only hire our own people, so that the team, the members of 18F, only interview and are the only ones who can call the shots on who gets hired into 18F. Very important that sustains our culture. And second, we only the team, the 18F team, can agree to work on a specific project or such. And so what this did was sort of double down on this belief that you could bring, that if you empowered talented people to do, important things, they could knock it out of the park as long as you gave them the empowerment and sort of got out of the way to help them do it.
What kind of principle did those guys follow in 18F that gave some new approach and a new way of?
The best way I could describe it is, if I don't know how familiar everybody is with this, but like lean startup methodologies. We were building a business, and we were using lean startup methodologies to build that product line and see what the customers wanted and test that, and we've evolved it ever since. I mean, it's been through, in its short lifespan, it's been through at least 6 different significant evolutions based on that learning, and that's good, right? I would expect it to do that. We weren't going to have it right from the beginning, but it can iterate and change quickly, more so than most departments in government.
Vendors, how do they react on starting doing things in a different way?
Most were threatened in the beginning. They saw it as competition. The ultimate goal, where 18F is today, which we had envisioned early on, was to change the way government works And in order to scale that change, we need to change the way we contract with vendors, right? And most vendors now see that we're fundamentally changing the contracts that we engage them with, which is to say, government isn't going to push risk off to the vendors anymore. We own it. It's for you, without that risk, to help us get there. And when you have that relationship, it's a lot easier to change and be trusting and not have 20-page, 200-page documents with every detail of what we do. Instead, we just work to an outcome together.
Project you worked on, how was this regarded from the customer's point of view, who's had to engage in a new way and take a new role in dealing with risk and so on? How was that?
This is still an evolution. Okay, so it's we brought in modern methodologies, user-centered design, agile methodologies, modular practices, and we believe in open innovation, which means coding in the open, but also working in the open. For the most part, across the federal government, this is not how the agencies work, right? They're the opposite of that. They believe in stakeholder-centered design. They believe in waterfall practices. They build monolithic systems that exist by themselves and don't communicate to other systems. And they generally like to work in a closed environment. So the truth be told, 18F is services that are meant to disrupt that broken model, right? And so it's uncomfortable for agencies, and as I imagine all disruption is.
You pick public leaders that were ready for that, or how did you impact them to go along with you in this new approach? For the most part, they weren't totally ready. Everybody knows something has to happen. Most people can't tell you what, but everybody knows that the current situation is not sustainable. Yeah. And so it's broken, so we have to do something new.
There's burning platforms everywhere. If you're into change management, you want to talk about that. But so what do you do with these burning platforms? Well, most people, they don't know. They just say fix it. And in many cases with IT, they make the unfortunate decision and say, well, IT's sort of done in that room over there, and go fix IT. The truth is, the way government works is broken. Right,
Fix the business.
Right, and you got to fix the business, and while fixing the business, an IT person should be at the table.
Try to explain what was your biggest success try to give an example that.
So I would say in the last 3 years we've have, everybody's always, how much money did you save, right? And we have examples of one system that was projected to cost $200 million, and now we think it's going to be 20 to 40 million. And it's not just the system, but the whole program itself, like literally coming down in price. There's actually a lot of stories of significant money savings in that regard. But I really think the impact that has been the greatest is increasingly the programs and even the business and financial side of government is realizing that we're bringing to bear agile change management processes to their processes, to the way that, like, what they typically consider the way they do something. So acquisitions, procurement happens a certain way. Well, what if we change that? Hiring, we were able to get hiring from, at GSA before we started, hiring typically took 9 months. It was 9 months to hire somebody. Seems crazy in this day and age. We got that down to 10 weeks. We've got an acquisition process that can be executed on within 4 to 5 weeks from listing to award. We solve the problems, not came with IT solutions. Does that make sense? And I think those things are the most impactful long term, because now with hiring fixed, we can get the right people into government at the speed of need. With acquisitions fixed, we can scale a program when we discover a problem midway through and engage a vendor within weeks to bring them on. Now we need to take those fundamental changes and sort of spread them across government. government.
Could you give some example on how did you feel the Obama's backing or really sponsorship for this approach?
When I came into government, I was a presidential innovation fellow, and day one, the discussion was go break some eggs, right? Go cause problems, right? I imagine most people coming into the government don't get that speech, right? That we were told for a week of onboarding, we expect you to get into trouble, we expect you to push boundaries, we expect you to do this. Those are empowering messages to be a change agent. Maybe a handful of times in government history have people been given that sort of like freedom. So that was a big part of it.
What will be your advice to Denmark on how to get that top-level politician buy-in for a new approach? Because what you just explained, the way of taking risk or try something new, it's not in the DNA of politicians or top-level governmental officers. So what will your advice be, Greg?
My advice would be to stop talking about digitization. And that might sound strange, but like the key to success in the government 3.0 or what? I'm sorry, what was it called again?
Denmark 3.0.
Denmark 3.0. I think that will be successful when everyone is talking about government working seamlessly, right? Just naturally fitting into the flow of things. Not about the technical needs that we need to do. And this is coming from a technologist, my function. I'm saying don't talk about my function. We should be talking about the mission, and everything is about the mission and delivery on the mission. And the answer is yes, whatever your function is, whether it's security, whether it's digitizing paper, whether it's, it really doesn't matter. You can pick any of the segments. The answer is yes, and then you should bring your expertise, that function to the table to help deliver on it. And I think, I don't know how it is here, but in the United States, millennials tend to get it, right? They see technology not as technology, but it's simply part of how they do.
But one of the big challenges is breaking down stovepipes. It's very obvious in the public sector, and they're very put up in silos, and I think that's one of the biggest barriers, and that's also why DANSK IT and other organizations and also the private sector urges Prime Minister to take some kind of political leadership in rethinking the public sector and also rethinking how the public sector work together with the private sector, and also empower citizens on really.
Right. So it's sort of refocusing on your goals. So let's say your goal was to improve the response time of firefighters, okay? And that was your mission. And if that was truly your mission, you wouldn't care whether it was your department who did it or not. You would only care that it got done. And if it meant not having your department either losing funds to another group to do it, you wouldn't care because it would be part of driving that mission. Somewhere that mission got lost. And I see this in the United States, and it's interesting to hear here too. Our government is more about territorialism and people protecting their territories than it is the mission. And in there lies the problem. If people were truly focused on solving the problem, and by the way, this is true too, that like the problem could be solved by the public or the private sector, right? Like somebody could come and then great.
Yeah.
Right?
Who cares? Make it fixed. Yeah.
Like and then pat yourself on the back and be thrilled that the mission you were asked to carry out got taken care of by somebody else with your guidance and collaboration. I mean, I hope we get to that point. That's sort of when government's working the way it should, solving the problems that people identify.
Time is running, Greg. What will 18F last?
Everybody asks this question. It will last if it provides a valuable service, right? And I hope it continues to provide a valuable service, but it's, 18F wasn't, there was no law that was signed that created 18F. There was no, it is simply providing a valuable services to people who have appropriated dollars who want to spend it on that, and I hope increasing number of customers within the federal government start to adopt these new methodologies and thus could use the support and coaching of an 18F. And then maybe there's a great future where we're all just working this way anyways, and we don't need an 18F. Like, that would be wonderful, right? Like,
we have embedded the passion and the mission.
Right. We achieve that goal, and 18F can go off into the distance. That would be wonderful.
Okay. Thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you.